Welcome to Life List, a birding podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. We are back with another episode of Life List. This is George Armistead, and I am here with Alvaro Jaramillo. Alvaro, what's going on?
Hey, how's it going, George? Doing well in the West Coast. Probably dark where you are at this point, but it's still light here.
Yeah, lucky you. Yeah, it's getting light a little later and later all the time. But yeah, it's dark out here. I'm looking forward to it's getting to that point in winter where we're starting to look ahead to spring a bit. I love winter, but longer days are nice too.
We got like the daffodils are out here, so
oh my god,
it's like spring. Allen's hummingbirds have returned.
This morning I was talking to Kristen and I was like, how cold is it out? And she's like, it's 36. And I was like, oh, not bad today.
Yeah, it's funny. It's been like, yesterday was really cold where I was in the morning, and it was like frost and all that. And then middle of the day, it was like super warm. It's like in one day, the contrasts are pretty high here right now. I'm not sure what's going on, but
4 seasons in a day there.
Yeah, like cloudless skies. So at night, just all the heat just leaves, so it gets in the little valley bottoms in some places, they're getting just super cold. And then sun comes out and, heats everything up. So it's a unique situation.
Man,
it's going on right now. They're actually talking about some record-breaking heat the next few days for February in California. So it's not good news.
I was going to say, that sounds a little scary. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. Well, what have you been seeing in this beautiful California weather you've got out there?
So, you know what I saw yesterday that I hadn't seen for years, and you think I'd see them all the time? California condor. On my drive, I went to leave Pablo. He was playing hockey here in the Bay Area, so we spent a day, weekend, and we drove him back to his school further south. And I thought, I'm going to make a day out of coming back home. I'm not just going to rush home. I'm going to go out, get photographs of stuff. And I saw more ferruginous hawks that I'd ever seen in a day. That was great. Photographs of those, and sort of ended up the day. Oh yeah, fantastic bird.
A booted pinnacles. Booted eagle. Yeah.
Oh, I did see the booted eagle. I saw the golden eagles and bald eagles and ferruginous. It was great, but ended up with, various spots with California condors. And because I haven't seen them for years, actually, I mean, they're always there, but I've just, you got to go out to see them. I hadn't done that for a while. I don't think I'd ever seen an adult California condor till yesterday. Wow. So, I mean,
how many individuals do you think you saw?
I guess maybe 4 at one time, but I saw them in various spots. So yeah, maybe saw 8 or so.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have only seen them once in my life. It was a couple years ago. I was out visiting you and Brian Sullivan and a couple other friends. And I still remember it was one of these like kind of typical thing that would only happen with birders, right? Where Sullivan and I are out there at one of his favorite sea watching spots, just seeing what goes by. And we had an awesome morning, like just tons of birds, moving past out there. And a couple other guys come up and they're like, what are you seeing? We start talking about what we're seeing. And they're like, well, we're heading south, down to Pfeiffer State Park and all that, looking for condors. And Sully knew that I wanted to see those and that time was kind of running out on my visit there. He's like, George, you should hop in the car with these guys. And like, I was like hesitant to ask. He was like, you mind taking my friend here? I think he was trying to get rid of me maybe, but, and so I, it's just one of those things where you're like, okay.
It was like a van with no windows and 2 guys with long beards. And you're like, oh yeah, I'll hop into this van. You say condor, I'm in. You had me at condor.
Yeah, it's true. It's like, I was thinking like in any other scenario, this would be just like a wickedly inappropriate, ridiculous idea. But here, your birders, it's kind of like Greg Neese calls like the secret handshake, and so I was just like, hopped in the car with them. We went down there. We saw like 15 condors or something.
Wow.
We had 4 or 5 in sight at once. We just kept seeing them. Beautiful day. I'm still in touch with those guys. Really, really, really great dudes. And, but yeah, man, see those things now in a way that, as little kids, and we never thought we'd have a chance to see them probably ever again.
They were basically, practically extinct. Right?
Yeah.
And then they took them all out of the wild, and you're like, well, that's it. I'll never see a condor, and then, boom, it worked.
Amazing story.
But you know what's weird is like the California condor and the Andean condor are not really that closely related, but I guess just based on the size and how they hold their tails and their wings and everything. Like I was driving along yesterday, I'm like, look up in the distance, just sort of eyeballs, like condor, and I just recognized the shape, in the flight. And it's not like I recognize a California condor. I haven't seen that many, but it was just my Andean condor experience was immediately transferable to these.
For every one California condor you've seen, how many Andean condors do you think you've seen?
It could be like 60. I don't know.
It's a lot. I know.
I've had days when we've seen like 80 Andean condors in one day, or maybe more than that, but I don't know if we've broken 100.
Southern Andes down there is pretty darn good place for them. I remember in Argentina being in places where there'd be like a guanaco carcass, and all of a sudden you just see them dropping, like bing, bing, bing. Yeah. Just dropping. Yeah. Get over there, it'd be 20 or 30 of them huddled around a carcass. Pretty amazing. Right.
No, I was contemplating yesterday too, as I was thinking kind of like condor in general, so we had Andean condors are up in the Andes, and these sort of, and we think of them as this mountain bird, partially because it's got the name Andean in it. But before there were people around, they were all over the lowlands too. And now there's some Andean condors that you can see in the lowlands here and there in some places. Even in Santiago, they're dropping in over the city, going to the dump. And I'm thinking like, wow, when California condors regain their full kind of populations, at least even at a micro level, they'll just be over the valleys and stuff. They're not necessarily always in the mountains. Well, obviously they need breeding structure, right? Like,
aren't there like fossil records of those like way east, right? Aren't there like they're all over the continent basically?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've created this situation where they're out in the wilds and the mountains and the hilltops and stuff, but condors were like all over the place at one point, which is
crazy to think, right?
Crazy to think,
Yeah.
I mean, but yeah, it was great. I mean, I didn't have a super close sighting, where they swished over my head or something. I should have brought a bottle of ketchup, put it on my neck and then lie down on the ground. They'd find me probably in half an hour. And
you can get pretty odoriferous as well. So just right. Work out a little bit, give a little stank, throw a little ketchup on there. Yeah, you might get closer look than you anticipated.
I mean, I don't know if I've told you that story, but my first really good look at an Andean condor, that's sort of what I did. I didn't have the ketchup bottle, but I went up on a big flat rock and I just lied down looking like I was dead. And this condor came like 10 feet away, like swished right over,
no way.
Looking at, seeing if this thing was,
wow,
edible or not. Things you do.
Were you actually trying to look dead, or were you just kind of relaxing?
No, I was trying to look. I was thinking if it comes close enough, I can then get up real quickly and take a photo, and because I pre days of digital cameras, so it's like
you're using your Kodachrome 64 on
right. So the dead guy on the rock, and it worked. I don't think I got a crappy photo, but I got a photo. That was all. Right. That's all you wanted back in those days,
Yeah.
Like this whole this sort of Tom Johnson photographs the birds in flight and perfect feather. That's just that wasn't even in the cards.
It's not fair, really. It's not fair.
Yeah. But in the old days, even the professional photographers couldn't do anything like that. So
yeah.
But
no, I remember going up to St. Paul Island that in 2002 for the summer, and I like spent all the money I had on film. and I think I took up 50 rolls of film or something, Now that's it's like a fraction of a memory card,
right. And you probably have to put it in a huge lead bag. So
exactly.
Don't put it through the X-ray. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
It's my whole life savings there.
Nice. Yeah, man. So Condors, that's pretty awesome.
Condor, yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Hawks, so I got to admit, they're pretty amazing because I did see them close. So
that's a regal bird, Buteo regalis.
Even. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a beauty of a Buteo.
It sure is. Really is. I mean, that's one of the best raptors in the world, I think, and definitely one of the greatest raptors in North America. Unique shape, the reddish feathered tarsi, that big gape on them,
Yeah.
Real serious eye,
Yeah. It looks like those wooden guys on the Nutcracker, they have the big jaw that comes down. It's like you could open their mouth into this huge, opening to grab a
walnut
in one go. Yeah, I know. But this is the hawk I'm talking about, grabbing the squirrel. It's just a crazy
jackrabbit
thing. Yeah, and then they were flying over, and I was noticing that you think of them as these kind of moderately pointed wing raptors, not quite like or Buteos, not quite like a Swainson's hawk, and they are, but their secondaries are bulging, and you're like, wow, that's when they went right over, I was like, that is a shape like no other Buteo.
A really distinctive shape, yeah,
really distinctive.
That same trip when I was out there with you and Brian. I remember Brian and I went someplace, I don't even remember where, and we saw a lot of Buteos, and I remember just being struck by the shape of those ferruginous hawks. They're really distinctive shape.
Yeah, it's cool. What have you been seeing?
Yeah, well, been doing some gulling, as nice. Will probably come as no surprise. Not a lot of great success with that. Some Iceland gulls around, which is always nice.
Yeah.
But these slatey backs keep popping up around here, man.
Boom, boom. Hey, I saw one even over here, but
yeah. I mean, you're allowed to get them there because you found the first ones there, and now you find them walking your dog or just taking a jog or whatever. It's
that's right.
That's Alvaro found another slatey back, but Vega gull was riding on its back, yeah. But yeah, no, that I think you saw South Carolina had their first. New York City just had their first. Maryland just had their first real legit one. And, what do these things have in common? Philadelphia is kind of between all of them. Yeah.
Well, actually, that's what they don't have in common. Philadelphia doesn't have the slatey back.
Yes. So it's a source of frustration to me. I've spent some time, kind of picking through gull flocks and with not a lot to show for it. One thing I did do though was Tom Johnson and I saw that this swan had appeared up there at Middle Creek Wildlife Management Area, which is an incredible place. People haven't been, they should definitely go. And early March is an amazing time to go there. You can, see 100,000 snow geese in a day and, thousands of swans. It's in sort of South Central Pennsylvania. And it is it's a really, really great birding place. And it's coming into its best time of year right now. But somebody up there, I'm trying to remember the name of the person, but they photographed this swan, Tundra Swan, in amongst all the other Tundra Swans, which, are the North American whistling swans. That's what, they call them. Right. This one's got a huge yellow base to the bill. And it's not like trumpeter / whooper swan big, but it's clearly a Buick swan.
Wow.
Yeah, which is... I don't think folks have now. A lot of people have gone and seen it and enjoyed it, which is neat. And I didn't even. I knew it was really rare, but I didn't realize just how rare it is for Eastern North America. Now, there's some Southern Ontario records, just a handful. I think it might have even been one bird knocking around between a few spots for some of them, but it looks like a span of 5-6 years. There's quite a few sightings in Southern Ontario. And then there's 2 from North Carolina, and that's it. Like 0 other, such sightings. And it's just kind of interesting to me that, taxonomically, it's a subspecies of Tundra Swan. So it doesn't get the attention that some other birds, like I keep thinking about the mandarin duck, right? The mandarin duck, like one shows up anyplace and people just lose their minds. And obviously mandarin duck is an amazing looking bird, but like, in terms of rarity, in terms of scarceness, this dwarfs almost anything else that you could see, Yeah. And it just got me thinking about some of the other, especially waterfowl, but other birds too, that rare things show up out of range. And some of them just everybody goes all in and goes for them. And other ones, people cast doubt on their origin, say that they're escapees. Or it's just because they're a subspecies, they don't get the attention. And I think there's so many examples of that.
I mean, you just mentioned one earlier, Vega gull.
Yeah.
Vega gull is subspecies of herring gull currently from Asia, and it's a rare bird. And when you find one, especially out east, like you guys have had, that's a huge deal. But there will be a handful of people who are interested in that because, well, it's a gull. So some people are just not interested. But it's sort of, it's like a subspecies.
It's a subspecies, yeah. Yeah. Kind of poo-poo it. Yeah.
And if it's ever separated, it'd be interesting to see how that shifts. Like if people will suddenly be like, you've seen the Vega gull.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. No, like, and it's true. Like we know that that's the case, right? Like if it was, I shouldn't say if, I should say when it's elevated to species level. Because I
predicting the future.
Yeah, I feel pretty confident about that one. I think most folks do. Like then that will change. People will be like, oh my gosh, I got to go see that thing. A Russian gull, like what the heck, But it got me thinking about another one. And there's a whole bunch of these, like
Thule white-fronted goose.
Sorry,
California. Thule white-fronted goose. That one's nobody knows about that one other than West Coasters. It's this big white-fronted goose, and apparently genetically quite distinct, but nobody, who's actually gone to look for them and seen them? Very few. They winter in the Central Valley.
I have to say I have heard of them only, but I haven't actually thought about them a whole degree. So I am guilty of that one myself.
Right. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
What other ones though?
Oh, so many. But like one of the ones I thought of when I started, this topic kind of got into my head and started worming its way around was the southern lapwing that showed up in Maryland. And that one has always bothered me because, well, and I think folks are increasingly aware that these things have been gradually expanding their ranges northwards. I think the first time I went to Panama, they just weren't really there, if I remember correctly. This would have been in like the late 90s or early 2000s or something. And like, then I think it was 7 or 8 years later, I went back and it was just like they were easily found everywhere. And there's a number of birds like that.
So I've got a question. I'm just assuming that if a southern lapwing ends up there, it's a wild bird. Are you telling me that the records committees did not accept that?
They did not accept it.
What?
Yeah. And in fact,
so that's unusual to me.
Yeah. Well, to me, it's like crazy.
Who keeps a they're annoying. I mean, like they're annoying birds.
Yeah. The only people that keep them right are like farmers in like, various parts of South America because they'll clip their wings and they make a hell of a racket. And then if somebody disturbs them on their way into the finca, the farm, then they're basically great alarms. But otherwise, they're not great to have around.
Take them with you. You leave them in the farm, right? Like you're not moving those things around.
No. No.
And if I remember that was, there's 4 different type subspecies. It was one of the northern ones, which is the one that you'd expect to be moving north, right?
That's the Lamprinotus or
it's Cayennensis.
Cayennensis.
Yeah. Cayennensis, I think.
Right.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, exactly. To me, that was like one where I think what happens is our expectations get in the way of the actually most likely scenario where where this thing showed up. There's no real precedent for it in this part of the world. And people look at it, and the thing looks, I mean, southern lapwings are pretty crazy looking, they really are. They're ostentatious, crazy looking. They got the spur on the shoulder. They got the crest, they make a ton of noise, pink face, long legs, they're like a cartoon character. And I think like you show people a picture of that in Maryland on a little, salt marsh island, and they think, oh yeah, that's somebody shoveled that out of a car or something, swept it out of a truck. There's no way that's wild. But you and I know and think, and a lot of folks know that it's a different situation. Those things are just moving north.
It's so funny, right? Because if it was like a heron, right? Like some unusual heron that is found, squawko heron, right? People would be like, oh my God, squawko heron, obviously wild. And you're like, well, hold on a second. Why is the lapwing not obviously wild?
Yeah.
And why? But I don't think people would have a problem with the squawko heron because there's sort of like they show up in Britain. They've shown up in probably, this sort of African species that's moved north and been around. So there's in your head, it becomes like, oh yeah, that's like something that could show up. But
yeah,
lapwing is something that could show up if you're a Central American. You'll be, if you're in the Yucatan, you see a southern lapwing, you'd be like, finally, they're showing up, right? Because these things are showing up. They're moving north.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it got another one I thought of was I remember being out at Cape Hatteras, at Cape Point, not quite at Cape Point, but around the Cape Hatteras area, and had a white-faced whistling duck in this, and it was acting like a wild bird. Like obviously, whistling ducks can be kept in captivity sometimes, but this thing was spooky. It was flying away, and I remember, and this again would have been back in the probably early '90s, and I thought my default was this has got to be a wild bird. Here you are at this point of land way out in the middle of the ocean, like practically, and is a logical place for a vagrant like that. And just nobody gave it the time of day. There's a West Indian whistling duck record from the Dismal Swamp of Virginia, which to me is another one that deserves,
Right. No, there's a picture way back of this little flock. I want to say it's like 4 to 6 individuals of ruddy shelduck from the Northwest Territories.
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember it was sort of like, I don't think it was sort of officially accepted as a wild record or whatever, because the provenance is so unlikely. I'm just like, so somehow you think it's more likely that somebody released 6 ruddy shelducks in the Arctic? That's more likely than the things actually got there. Sort of. To me, it's like it's your perception of likelihood that sort of diminishes the abilities of these birds.
Exactly. That's what I say. I find myself saying that people, working on records committees and stuff, and it's a thankless job working on records committees. And I'm on one myself right now, and know lots of others that are. So I don't mean to diminish their efforts, but I do think that all of us are subject to the trappings of our own mind, and sometimes you really have to go through some serious mental gymnastics to come up to create an argument for how a bird got there, rather than just the more
it flew there.
Yeah, that's where it is. That's where it ended up.
Yeah. No, I've always pondered that whole idea of like when you're in these, if you read all this stuff that the records committees, put out or you hear the discussions, they talk about being conservative, right? That you don't want to go crazy. You don't want to be insane, right? And just, willy-nilly accept anything. But being conservative doesn't mean assuming that everything is not wild.
Right.
Right. Because that's the assumption. That seems to be like where you begin. And then you say, well, let's figure out if I can, in a sense, that's my default hypothesis. Let's see if I can break out of that hypothesis and say, okay, I'm comfortable with this being wild. I would say assume they're wild.
Yeah.
Unless you have reason not to, right? So Mandarin duck, right? Everybody keeps them. The things, only show up in city parks.
Right. Pretty straightforward. Yeah.
Right. And there's almost always males. I think to me, those things all add up. But some of these other birds, they're just, why not accept that they're wild unless there's like a real reason to say they're not, like a big band on his leg or something, or wear stage,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember seeing a couple ruddy shell ducks at Blackwater National Wildlife Refuge in the middle of winter once, and they were flying around, just like moving around the impoundments, and I, we're far enough away, we're close enough, I should say, to urban populations that you wonder a little bit more about those ones than you would in the Arctic. But I still, to me, just gut reaction, those appeared to be wild birds.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that they were, but that's what my gut tells me.
Right.
There's some other ones that really can make it tough for us as well, but some of them really are more straightforward than we give them credit for.
And some of these rare geese that show up sometimes, like, I recall the original sort of some of those early Ontario barnacle geese that would show up in city, kind of not city parks, but sort of manicured lawns with other geese, and they became moderately tame. But then they'd leave, and in the summer or what have you. And you think, well, probably not a wild bird because it's just acting too tame. But then you go to Hawaii, right, where it's not like there's like a bazillion people just importing geese all over the place. There are vagrant, cackling geese, vagrant, brant, vagrant geese of different types. And invariably, they all go to parks.
Yeah.
Manicured lawns and become super tame.
Right.
And you're thinking, wow, okay, so maybe this is the default for these lost geese. They just, they gravitate to, oh yeah, there's a flock of Canada geese that's sitting around. So they get in with them. But then you go, oh, wow, like, so their behavior is actually moldable, right?
Yeah.
So we can't assume that they are acting that way because they're not wild. In fact, we can prove that they become this way because they get into these situations and they realize risk is really low. Nobody's hunting them or whatever, and they just like become tame.
I think you and I on a Hawaii tour once had like 5 species of geese at that like Wailoa River, state park or whatever it was there, and like they were all just like together with some like Egyptian geese and and like white domestic ducks and stuff, but that like people aren't importing minima cackling geese here.
And a flock of them where, 2 of them are adults and the other ones are juvenile.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you're like, okay, so this seems like they got here on their own.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So interesting the birds that, we sort of automatically sort of go one way or the other with wildness. But like Steller sea eagle, right? Nobody's going to be really sort of, I guess they originally were like, oh, could this be from a zoo? But
the one in Texas, the sighting in Texas raised some real eyebrows.
Right.
But even that, I mean, I'm with you. I mean, I'm like, well, maybe it just flew there.
Right.
That's kind of my default for most of these.
We've been having a rare bird situation here. Oriental turtle dove.
Oh, yes. Oriental turtle dove. That's
right. So that's causing, it's big enough news that a reporter called me today to talk about this thing. And I had nothing to do with the finding of this bird, but this biologist, he lives in Palo Alto, and he had this weird bird coming into his backyard, and he just sort of put it out as sort of like, hey, is anybody know if this dove here is like something cool? And sure enough, it was something cool. And this, Andrew Bradshaw is the guy who found it. And I think within minutes I replied to him and I said, Andrew, I think this is a big deal. You've got yourself one of the Oriental turtle dove. It's a migratory bird. And it's
mega rarity.
Third record in California, a few records in Alaska, British Columbia. This is so. I said, Andrew, you might be maybe getting bars for your windows or something, because you're going to have birders.
You have a lot of visitors coming your way.
A lot of visitors, So he said he was like, oh, I can't really have people over. I got a little place, it's like a little yard in the back, and but local birders went to the neighborhood and found it roosting somewhere. So the birders have been able to see it outside of his place, and then people are now flying in from the rest of the country to see this super
all over the place.
Yeah. So I had kind of the little role in sort of helping identify this thing and prepare him for
the onslaught.
So it's originally it was sort of, there were a few people. It's like, well, it's a dove, right? People keep doves, so it's probably a scapee. And I was like, this is a highly migratory species, especially this form, this subspecies, and that you could identify it from various aspects of its plumage. So, and these things have show up in Alaska and stuff. So it's like, maybe it can take a little ride on a boat down for part of its journey. They could do that, but
right. Odds are that's a strong flying bird right there.
Strong flying bird. So I think everybody sort of switched to, this is a wild bird. So pretty quickly, I think people switched to that, and so that's a whole, still there. People are seeing it. It's causing a commotion. I got to say though, like one completely different topic. I know the history of, the Orient, the East from a European perspective. The Orient was to the East. This is why we have the word to orient yourself, is actually churches used to be built to have the doors facing the rising sun. And that's the East, the Orient, and Orient actually means rising. So, that's why we use this word. But if you're a person, right, and you're sort of called Oriental, it's an other, right? This is not a comfortable word for me to think about, And I'm just sort of thinking, maybe I'm not one of these people who's like, let's change every single bird name. And I do react though to the concept of when people say like, hey, some words we use might make some people feel bad, right? I'm sure that like Steller seagulls named after Steller. I don't know who I know who Steller kind of was, George Steller, but
I was going to say George. His good solid name, George.
Except he spelled it wrong, right?
It's true. Yeah, it's Russians.
No, I'm not sure that the word Steller makes anybody feel wrong, except when you misspell it, of course. But but the word, flesh, as in flesh-footed shearwater, I think has connotations that make you feel like, I thought we all had flesh.
Oh, right. Whose flesh are we talking about here?
Yeah. But we're talking about pink. Hold on a second. That's not flesh. That's skin color you're talking about there, right? So that's one thing. And to me, Oriental is another one that I think we should take all these birds called Oriental something and just call them Asian or something else. I do find that's a word that if it makes me uncomfortable, I'm sure it makes other people uncomfortable. Steller, I don't know. I mean, I know it's named for some dude, and that could be a problem, may not be, I don't know, but it's not visceral. This one is. So I feel I thought I'd point that out, just that. Yeah. It's but it's the name of the bird. What am I to do, right? It's right now.
Right. That's for the time being. That's what it's called. Yeah.
It's a rare bird, but.
Yeah. Well, Al, well, you do know, but
do I?
I like to remind folks of two other critters named after Steller that people seldom discuss, actually.
No.
And one is the sea cow.
The sea cow.
Steller's sea cow. Long extinct. Well, not so long in terms, sort of geological time, but but a couple centuries now.
Right.
In fact, I think they were discovered by, or at least named, given a scientific name after the Vitus Bering expedition, I believe it was, the one that got shipwrecked out there. And they actually ended up getting off the island and getting back to safety eventually. But they were rumored to be very tasty. Not to delve back too much into some of our mammal tasting discussions we've had in the recent past.
Little sea cow with some sea lettuce and some sea cucumbers, and you got yourself a fiesta.
Sounds delicious. Yeah. But I think it was described as having tasted quite tasty. I mean, I imagine if you're up in that part of the world and, you don't have hand warmers for your gloves, and just about any kind of protein starts to taste pretty good. But I think it didn't help them that they were tasty and slow moving and really big, right? They're big sea cows. Well, yeah.
And if anybody
extinct now.
People should look this animal up. It's related to a manatee, but it was up in it was in the Bering Sea. So in cold water, it was a cold water, and it was actually, manatees have that tail like a diamond. And in Asia, there's a related animal called the dugong. I think
yes.
It's got more like a fish tail. It was actually related to that. It had like a fish tail rather than,
sort of the dolphin style whale tail.
Yeah. The weird, yeah. It's almost paddle. Like a paddle. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and they were huge. And I don't understand how, that's an animal that I think only exists now as a skeleton. I don't think there's a photograph of it, right? I don't think there's
no photos.
Nothing. Yeah. It's just skeletons. So we know they existed.
I think they were maybe not seen in the wild a whole lot after that expedition. And the other one was the Steller's shag, or spectacled cormorant, as it was seen and as it was called. And that's another one that is extinct as well.
Huh. I got to admit, I'd forgotten about that one,
Yeah, spectacled cormorant, Steller's shag. I think there's even one other English name it's given at times, but it was only found it was at the Commander Islands, I think, up there.
Yeah, the Komandorskis.
Yeah, the Komandorskis. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, it's basically a stone's throw from North America. These two beasts in the same area, both gone just a couple hundred years ago.
Right. Do you remember that whole? Gosh, it was maybe it was in the bird chat days when there was somebody who thought they'd seen this extinct cormorant. That
I do remember that.
Was
yes,
related to the.
That's the one.
Pelagic cormorant. Is that it? Yeah,
it was that. Yeah, they said they'd rediscovered the Steller shag spectacled cormorant. Yeah,
and that's and then it turned out no. They had
yes, it was sort of the ivory-billed woodpecker before there was an ivory-billed woodpecker,
right?
Yeah,
and then there was also some discussion later whether that creature was really different enough to be considered. But I don't remember.
Or if it was like a hybrid, wasn't there?
Something like that,
yeah, I forget. There was some speculation as to its taxonomic status. Yeah,
but Steller, boy, he was. What was their ship called the Vega? Is that why the Vega gull is, or is there some other? I thought the bird is actually named for a ship from some kind of a expedition, and there weren't that many back in those days, so I'm not sure.
I've been trying to remember as we've been talking here.
Yeah, maybe not,
because it's a pretty interesting story. The whole them getting shipwrecked and.
Any case, the turtle dove, Steller's. Sea eagle, all sorts of rare birds causing commotion. In fact, gosh, I haven't listened to it yet, but the ABA podcast has a whole thing on the best bird.
Yeah, Nate Swick, the host there, with Tom Johnson and Amy Davis, did a great rundown of 2021's mind-blowing rarities and rarity events.
Oh, that's cool. I got to listen to that. So
yeah,
I was in that interview with the reporter. He was sort of saying to me like, so this bird, and it's lost and it's has no community. And it finds these mourning doves, and it does its own thing here, but it's kind of created this community of birders, sort of in this. And we started getting like philosophical about like, people now are traveling and things are sort of, people have this outlook and sort of, is there something cosmic going on, but I think it was interesting to think about maybe what his real question was like, is this really special? And I said, well, rare birds have happened all the time. There's like, this stuff's been going on all the time, but there are some rare birds that end up being like just more than others, right? And it tends to be because a lot of people saw it, right? A lot of people were involved.
It was an event.
The event. Right? You talked about the golden wing warbler in England, the Steller's sea eagle. I mentioned to him the Ross's gull in Half Moon Bay that I did not see, that it's become sort of a thing, and a big event. And I said, I think this one's going to go down as an event. It's in Palo Alto. People are seeing it. It's been there for several days. It's really rare. It's to me, a good looking dove. I mean, it's not a fruit dove or something crazy, but it's a good looking dove. And I was saying that it's like a good, there's a Super Bowl every year. Is what I told him, but there are some that are classics. I said, this could end up being a classic bird, at least for California. We'll see. See how many people see it.
Could be the Super Bowl 52 of birds.
Right.
It's when the Eagles beat the Patriots 41-33. It's pretty great Super Bowl, I dare say.
Let's ask our listeners from the Northeast if they think so.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And one of the ones I always think of too is the other Ross's gull from Massachusetts.
Right.
That was kind of a really important bird actually in the history of American birding.
Right.
Like really, all these people went to see that bird. Was at Newburyport in 71 or something. I forget exactly what the date was. And like Ludlow Griscom and all these folks kind of came there to see it and realized that, wow, there's actually a lot of other people around doing this kind of thing.
Right.
And it was a real kind of watershed moment in the history of American birding. And so these events, you never know kind of just what will spin out of them.
I think there has to be, it's always a rare bird. So you really got the rarity, but even within rare birds, right, you could have, a rare flycatcher that doesn't look that cool. And you'd be like,
small-billed Elanias might not quite do it.
Right.
Yeah.
That you just have the rarity effect. But if you have rarity, a good looking bird, and a situation where lots of people see it, we're talking already, it's been hundreds, maybe, I'm not sure if it's broken 1,000, this dove, but probably getting there,
Yeah.
And then, I think those are the main elements that make sort of a classic bird.
The Steller Seagull is like nothing I've ever seen before.
Yeah.
I joined the Maine Rare Bird Alert, and I think the day I joined, 800 other people joined the Maine Rare Bird Alert. Prior to that, I think there was 170 or something like that.
Wow.
Just the eagle just drew people like nothing else.
I think I don't know how many people have gone to see the bat falcon, but that was also
a lot.
That's also another one that sort of, it's a good looking rare bird. I mean, and that one's a little different to me because it's actually not from that far away. It just happened to cross the border, right? It's a
badass little bird too.
Yeah. But it's not
tropical merlin, basically. It's pretty awesome. Yeah.
But the distance rarity sort of vagrant effect there is sort of not really that much. It just happened to, be that it got into
across
the
the border.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it helps too. There's a bunch of other good stuff down there right now, like, social flycatcher, crimson colored grosbeak, and what other stuff too. Yeah.
Yeah. Some other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'd have to make a good list of all those super cool birds,
Yeah. Those events. I mean, and it is funny how, like, we've talked about that golden-winged warbler or the Acadian flycatcher, I remember in Britain. And I do think if you see the pictures of birders at those events there, it does look different than here. There you get hundreds of people, and the culture is different. The geography is different. The birds there concentrate people into smaller areas, and everybody can make it everywhere within a couple hours, relatively speaking. But like, I remember seeing, I think it was a photo of the Acadian flycatcher a few years ago, and it was like this wall of people, and like everybody had scopes.
Yeah.
And it was mostly dudes. It was mostly dudes, mostly kind of like middle-aged dudes, younger dudes. And not to say there's not a lot of female birders in Britain, but when it comes to the chasing, it seems like a lot of the time there's more men doing it there.
Yeah. Reminding me too of like this note we got from one of our listeners from Holland, from the Low Country.
Yeah.
From the Netherlands. Yeah. Timo Rook. And I'll say, hoe gaat het, Timo? See, I know a little Dutch, right?
Wow, look at you. I got to say, I got a little frisson listening to you there. Very impressive.
I actually told him that, my grandma's part Dutch, so that's why I'm tall. I'm taller than the average Chilean star.
Yeah.
So
I hadn't thought about that. Yeah.
But he was wondering about the demographics of birders, and he was saying from his perspective in Holland, and Holland's one of the big birding countries in Europe, right? You have, I would say there's Sweden, England, or UK, Holland, and I think Spain actually has a lot of birders. But there are very few birders like in Germany for the size of the nation. So that's another question. Like, why are some countries more birder? It's in their kind of makeup.
Yeah, it would be interesting, like a per capita, comparison of some countries. I do feel like I've met a lot of Dutch birders over the years.
A lot of Dutch birders. Good. I like Dutch people. They seem to be just good.
I'm not so sure about their language. The people, though, are great.
Yeah, their language. They all speak English, though.
Yes, that is very, very handy, because it seems like an impenetrable language to me.
It's one, maybe not quite like Finnish, but it's getting there, And you got to,
it's a little phlegmy,
right? So, but I was thinking about this, and he was wondering if there's more women birding in the U.S. than Europe and Holland and so forth. And I think there are. Actually, I think over here we're probably 60% women when you add it all up.
I would say over half. Yeah.
Over half. In Europe, it's really skewed towards men, and sometimes sort of not always there's a younger kind of guy crowd too that is out there, and you hear my dogs?
Yeah, it's like, is that my dog, or are those your dogs?
Dogs go crazy. Yeah.
Those little dachshunds you got, man. They're little terrors.
Terrors. But and I wondered if you think there's a lot of stereotyping that you have to do to sort of come out with answers here, but I wonder if they're a little bit more into the listing in Europe than North American birders. There's a lot more just let's go birding in North America, and that allows for more couples, younger people, sometimes women, just get in it just from the fascination of natural history, while the real sort of British birding kind of cutthroat listing thing is a little crazy. It's all guys, essentially. I mean, I want to say all guys, but
right. Overwhelmingly, though.
Overwhelmingly.
Yeah.
And then you go, like, you guys had some really cool experiences in Uganda where they're focusing not on listing or anything, they're just focusing on tourism and enjoyment. I mean, and listen to your podcast you guys did last week, and seemed like over there was a real mix and a lot of young people, right?
Yes. It would be interesting, actually, to compare the U.S. and probably the UK too, in terms of the demography, especially with regard to age, right. In terms of who is birding, who are the birders. Because I know you're seeing in Chile and we've seen in Colombia, and Molly and I were seeing in Uganda, just this huge upswelling of birders. And, if you were doing like a kind of, if you were plotting them on a graph, they'd be overwhelmingly, probably folks under 40, under 30 even,
right.
The bulk of them.
Yeah.
Which is pretty exciting when you think about it.
Yeah, it is. And at least knowing the Chilean gang pretty closely, given talks over there where you get, a couple hundred people coming out and they tell you about their experience as a birder. A lot of them came out of being interested in conservation and wildlife and kind of Animal Planet, sort of like, wow, look at all this stuff. And then they realize that they can do it. They can become a birder, and then they're in on it. Like then the conservation that they might be interested, suddenly has this real kind of total, hands-on aspect to it, so they're not thinking about eBird as a tool for listing necessarily. They're thinking of eBird as a tool for tracking information that is vital. Yeah. Well, here we're often, complaining about eBird, or people are. You see it sometimes, like, well, it's counting my introduced birds, whatever. It's like, this has to be changed, Yeah. And it's sort of like, it's
a default listing software for most Americans, which is not really its true purpose. Right. It's meant to track populations and trends in populations and ranges. I do think you're right. I think that, I think a lot of us have tried this at home too, where you pick a little patch and maybe you go in eBird and you see the bar charts and you see there's these big gaps where basically nobody's going to these areas. And you think, you know what, I'm going to try to fill up, all the weeks, all 52 weeks there, make sure there's some data. So that's a complete bar chart. And I think people in some of these countries where birding is really taking off now, I think they see that too. They see, well, look at this hotspot is right where I live. And, like 2 months out of the year, it gets a few eBird lists. If I spend the rest of the year eBirding here, like I'm fleshing out a data set and contributing to conservation at the same time. I think that's pretty inspiring if you live in that community.
Yeah, no, and you see it like from a temporal perspective as we've been birding some of these places, sort of in the early eBird years. You go to Guatemala, let's say, and you see what the checklists were, and every single last name of every observer was a sort of a gringo English sounding or European sounding last name. And you're realizing, it's really all the tourists coming in here, filling in the data, but now it's locals, right? It's the locals now that are really contributing to their own data set. And you're not seeing as much of that situation. So, I mean, that's amazing. And it's younger people. And I think the pandemic has made our birding community younger here too in North America. Yes. I don't know, about Timo, what's going on in Europe, but definitely here, it seems like we've sort of brought our average down. A lot of younger folks involved all of a sudden,
Yeah. I think there's a number of things at work that are helping more and more people get into birds earlier and earlier. And in addition to some of the things we've touched on, I think with all the virtual experiences we have now, all the screen time, I do think there is a need for people to want to connect with something real that's and have the presence of being outside, and just like being away from all that, all the screen time and everything, all the phones and laptops and iPads and everything. Like you get outside and maybe pick up a pair of binoculars instead, and you like that's a different experience now relative to our day-to-day experience compared to what it was 5 years ago, much less 25 years ago. I think, and as you say, I think the pandemic really drove that home for a lot of folks, a lot of younger people, made them realize how much you can get out of time spent outside.
Right. I do think one thing too that I mentioned, the younger people, like in the Chileans, are sort of conservation minded and they become birders. I do find that here you often will get people who pick up birding as older and become really into it, and then they become conservationists. So I'm just, I didn't want to come out like there was like a critique of North Americans. We all end up kind of, many of us end up in the same kind of thought process where like, gosh, if I'm doing this every day and I don't care, who else is going to care? So I better care.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And I think you get to a point too where you realize how much birds have given you, how much they feed your soul and your day-to-day happiness. I think you shared one of those articles recently about how time in nature and birding actually, they give you more than financial stability can in some ways.
Yeah. So if anybody's like wanting to, see more birds and give us money, we do birding tours for.
Wow, nice segue there.
Oh boy, yeah, that's like talk about just bad marketing. And with your situation in Uganda, and we're planning a trip later on in the season to Cuba. A lot of the people we deal with in Cuba are really sort of making their living from the birding groups going through there. So there's Orlando that goes and shows you the the doves out there, right? The quail doves, and there might be the house that we stay at a certain place, and
or the place you eat lunch for the bee hummingbird or something.
Yeah, the bee hummingbird dude, it's like the bee hummingbird house. And all of those people had sort of this steady income from natural history, and it's been gone for a couple of years. And the whole country of Cuba is suffering, the entire country, let alone, the bird-related people. But it feels great to sort of kickstart our tours and then be able to see these people again who haven't seen them for years, see how they're doing and all that, but begin to again be part of this flow of resources to people who actually do care for the environment. Like they do go out there and they're, making sure that the trails are fine and that, there's no forest fires and all this kind of stuff going on. They're taking care of it. And it's just, it feels bad because they're waiting for us to come, and we aren't coming. It's almost like, like I feel like it's a punishment that they don't deserve at all. Like, and I think it's been feeling sort of like it's going to be real release, not just to see the birds, but almost more deep in a way to see these people and make sure that we're sort of continue this cycle again.
Yeah, the partners, the agents, the colleagues, the restaurants, the guides, the hotel staff, all these tours you do again and again, you get to know all these people. It's like you get to the point where you're almost like, I'm going home again to my home away from home to work with this team of people. And it does, you grow to miss them. I do feel like we're turning the corner, which is pretty exciting.
It's pretty exciting. Man, we're hitting our time.
Yeah, just about. Yeah. Yeah. Alvaro, any last words for the people? Anything you got coming up you want folks to know about?
Well, we, in the sort of this thought process of kickstarting things, we realized Thailand just put on a new sort of process to get people to go and visit the country, and our Thai guides are available. And Peter Burke said, let's just try it, see if we can do a trip in March, late March. So like right around the corner. So if you're interested in Thailand, go to Alvaro's Adventures, and we only need like 4 people to make this trip a go. So it's
oh my God,
really
that is such a kind of, it's a mecca for birds.
It's sort of, we don't tend to do this kind of thing. Usually you're planning trips way ahead, but we had this trip kind of planned before the pandemic, and we just sort of letting it loose and see if it happens, and if not, the next year. But that's one thing we got kind of out there. So we'll see.
That's such a great destination, and it's one that really, I haven't been there for quite some time now, but I know that it is another place that has really grown birding tourism, in that there's tremendous photography, tremendous birds, all sorts of fancy pheasants and broadbills and all sorts of cool stuff. And the food is tremendous. Tremendous.
You don't have to go to
everywhere
a Thai restaurant.
Yeah, it's like
in a Thai restaurant the whole time.
Like I went to a couple like fancy restaurants, and then I went to, I ate at like, street carts, and everywhere the food was delicious. It was so good.
Yeah. I've only spent a few days there myself, so I'm kind of interested eventually to getting out there myself. But Peter will be doing that trip. And otherwise, we've got our membership site, Birding Your Best Life, if you want to learn about ID and birds and distribution. That's where we're going to start storing all of our stuff, our courses.
Yeah. We got our live event tomorrow night. This will post probably after that, but I suspect that'll not be the last live event. I'm sure you've got some other ones cooking, so people should definitely keep an eye out for that.
And what do you got going on?
Pelagics, man. Got some more pelagics. It looks like I got pelagics the next three out of the next 4, maybe 4 out of the next 4 weekends. Of course, weather dependent. Need some help from the weather gods. The one that coming this weekend is sold out, and the weather's looking pretty good at the moment. Hopefully that holds up. And I got a couple more coming up. So I hope folks that might be interested will check the Hillstar Nature site and look for that. And also, very excited about a Colombia tour I've got coming up in July, which is just about where we need it to go. I think we've got, it's almost to the point where we're ready to rock. And it's another one where it's relaxed pace, good photo ops, nice lodging. And again, I'll be seeing a bunch of friends in Colombia that I haven't seen in quite a while now. So it'll be really great to get back there and enjoy some good Colombian food and some great Colombian birds with friends. So looking forward to that.
Hey, just like thinking about your pelagics, what people don't know, and they're from, they're a few hours driving distance. Where do you leave from? Where do you go from? Or are there multiple places you leave from? So.
Multiple sites. So the one this weekend is out of Ocean City, Maryland. Sometimes we do them out of Lewis, Delaware. Mm-hmm. And then we have a couple different ports we're working out of in New Jersey as well. So the one on the 19th of February is going out of Wildwood Crest, which is just north of Cape May, a little ways. So South Jersey. And later in the year, hopefully have some going out of North Jersey as well, maybe for some more deep water situations. So I'm sure we will be telling folks about that as the plans solidify there.
Cool. Yeah, sounds good. Yeah. I want to hear about the dove keys.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. Ridiculously cute little things.
Yeah, I still need to see that one, as as the listeners know, if you're following this thing.
Yeah, we got to get you here.
Cold though.
Good. Nice. Well, thanks everybody for listening, and thanks to our producer Molly Brown. She's getting ready to head to the San Diego Birding Festival in the next few days. Keep an eye out for her there. Thanks for listening, everybody. Al, have a good one.
All right. Thanks. See you, George. See you, everybody.